I hate gift giving and receiving.
Receiving gifts is so weird. What do you say? Thank you?
This is Coffee Convos with Kale Lowry and Lindsay Chrisley.
I really want you to be in your feels, Kale.
That does not interest me whatsoever.
I feel very attacked by you.
A spirited discussion about motherhood, friendship, family, and life in the public eye.
I'm just not with the fakery anymore.
There's a fakery bakery around here.
Here's Kale and Lindsay.
Hello, Lindsay.
Hello. I love
nice
seeing your little face
on camera. I know. We never do on camera stuff. And it's a little weird because I don't have like a desk to put my computer on. So I'm just kind of sitting at on my bed. So I don't know if any of our listeners remember when we first covered Brooke Skylar Richardson for the case that she was charged and I believe convicted for abuse of a corpse. She was the cheerleader in high school who gave birth at home and then buried her daughter in the backyard. Today we have a reporter, Sonia Chopra, and we are going to cover the case more in depth with her because she was actually the only reporter to break the story and be the one that Skylar talks to. I don't think Skylar ever talked to any other reporter.
I think that this is so interesting. I'm still like slightly angry about the entire case. And so I would love to be able to get like more insight from someone who's actually spoken to her to be able to get inside her brain.
I want to know if she's angry.
Same.
Or does she just remain like completely unbiased, no opinion?
This will be very interesting. I love how we're both sitting on our beds and just looking like trolls right now.
I'm trying not to move, but it's really hard because I just have my computer on a pillow. So, no, I'm very, very interested. She self-published a book called Saving Skylar, the Brooke Skylar Richardson case. I did watch something on this and I can't remember if it was on Hulu or Netflix or what it was on. But I started looking up the case and I started pulling stuff up. And I guess the Skylar, the father of Skylar's baby, held like a candlelight vigil, and his mom was willing to raise this baby had she known, but she said she never got the chance. And I just feel like myself being someone who got pregnant in high school, it's not the end all be all. Is it ideal? Absolutely not. Is it fun? Absolutely not. But there are options and your parents will forgive you.
I think that there's way more to the story than what we actually know. And I'm going to assume at this point, before we talk to this reporter, that there's definitely some play in this situation based off of how she was raised.
Right. I did see an interview with the parents. The parents had no idea.
That's what's so weird to me is like, what was that show that used to come on? I don't know if it was like TLC or whatever, but it was like about how people didn't know that they were pregnant. And then they would have like these...
it was, I didn't know I was pregnant.
Yeah. And they would have like these emergency deliveries or whatever. So I know that there are some weird situations to where people can like disguise this or not know. I just find it to be weird that she was living in her parents' home. They had no idea that she was pregnant. And she was a cheerleader. So like within that 9 months, was she not wearing a uniform?
So I actually pulled up pictures and I'm going to see if I can send it to you really quick of her in her, what looks like a prom dress. Obviously we've been pregnant before, so we kind of know like what it looks like. But I guess if you didn't know she was pregnant, you wouldn't really think of it. You know what I mean? Like that wouldn't be the first thing that you see or you think of.
And any photos or any articles or anything like that we reference, we'll make sure that we post all of the resources on Coffee Combo's Instagram page as well. Did you send me the photo?
Yeah, it's still sending for some reason. Just so interesting. There's other options. There's so many other options. Literally those safe haven boxes is it legal to drop your baby off I know some fire departments have it, but I think it's even legal to do like at the church, like if you leave some churches.
I guess I just don't understand. But again, I don't have a high schooler. You have a child that just entered middle school, right? He's just entering middle school.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a little naive because I have a third grader and I know everything about his business.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just like, how do you go that long in a pregnancy and you're living under the same roof with your parents and they just don't know? Like, wouldn't she have even had a physical at some point during this time?
Missed period. I don't
Yeah.
know, because I don't have a daughter, so I don't know. It's easy to, I feel like, pass judgment on the parents, but at the end of and also, like, how did they not hear all of this happening? Like, she was completely silent while she gave birth and then went out and dug up a grave. Like, where did she burn the baby? Like, did they not, like, I don't know. Like, it's just so, and I need answers from,
Okay, so I'm looking at this prom dress photo and I feel like it's a bamboozle a little bit because it is a front-facing prom dress photo, and I almost feel like some women from the front or the back don't look pregnant. But like if she was turned to the side, I feel like you might be able to tell she's pregnant.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. No, do we believe that the parents didn't know?
I don't think they did. I mean, they both cried. The mom and the dad both cried. They seemed to be kind of very much on the same page, not like, remember when we covered JonBenet Ramsey and they both got different attorneys, and I don't know, like, I just got the feeling that they weren't necessarily aligned.
Mm-hmm.
But when I watched the interviews of Skylar's parents, they seemed very much aligned.
First thing that's coming to my mind right now is freaking Brian Laundrie and his parents. And like, you can't convince me that they didn't know stuff. Like, it makes me wonder,
100%.
based off of the actions and the crime that Skylar committed, that like, are they claiming that they had no idea because they don't want to be an accessory to a crime, like, or didn't report something or whatever? Like, I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Here's the thing. I know we can't all say like, oh, this is what I would do, this is what I wouldn't do until you're in that actual situation. But sitting here right now and having my kids, I'm not helping them burn a baby's body. We are going to handle the situation. We're going to raise the baby and or give it up for adoption. Like, whatever that looks like, I'm going to help them figure it out. And I'm not going to help my kids burn a baby's body.
Well, I think the solution is you help them figure out a solution to the problem without committing crimes.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to help you commit a crime.
No.
Like, I'll help you lawyer up if you commit one, but like, that's it.
I don't know. And when I was reading what she got as a sentence, I believe it was, and we can just double check obviously with the reporter, but I believe she ended up only getting like a 5th degree felony. And so she didn't actually serve.
What the hell's a 5th degree felony? Like, you went through so many degrees of felonies. Like, you went through the first 4. What's a 5th degree? I gotta
abuse
Google
of
this.
a corpse.
What?
And that's what she was ultimately convicted of, was abuse of a corpse, because in the interrogation videos, there was conflicting evidence on whether or not this baby was born stillborn or the baby made sounds and was alive. Because when I watched the videos, Skylar was dead set on the baby was a stillborn. But then the investigators / interrogators were like, did she whimper? Did she make noise? And then the story changed to, well, she might have made some noise. So that is also confusing for me, because I don't feel like, not that I can remember, I don't remember there ever being like a definitive answer.
I don't know. I don't know much about this other than what we initially discussed. So very interested to know all the deets. But these parents, just by us having this conversation, feel sus to me. Like, you're not going to convince me otherwise. Like, there's no way that a girl who is a dedicated cheerleader, which means that her mom probably, well, that's a generalization, that is like very involved, because that's not always the case. But like, just judging by the pictures of her, I feel like her mom would be like an in the know mom.
I feel like, I don't know if it was her case, or I might be confused. I hope I'm not confusing it with another one. She didn't always tell her mom everything that was going on. It says, Brooke Skylar Richardson was sentenced to 3 years probation for burying the baby girl's corpse in her parents' Carlisle backyard in May of 2017. She was released on Tuesday after serving 14 months. And then she was sentenced to 3 years probation.
14 months for burning a body to me is not enough time. But at the same time, you and I have had so many conversations about like what possible mental health issues could have been going on with this girl. And then I was just in therapy right before we got on here, and we were talking about parenting styles and like how I am a natural consequence parenter and I give choices, and how strict parents, I believe, create sneaky children.
I also agree with that.
And so I'm wondering if her parents were like so strict that she feared so much what the outcome was going to be that she felt like that there was no other choice.
Yeah, I mean, I do think about that because, I mean, if you put yourself back to a time where, I mean, I don't know if you were ever fearful of your parents, but I was scared of my mom sometimes. And like my mom's going to kill me or so-and-so is going to kill me kind of thing. But now as a mom myself, I mean, I would love my kids through it all. You know what I mean? Obviously would be disappointed or whatever the case may be, but I'm not really sure. I don't know. Lindsay and I talk about Everlywell all the time, and Everlywell is a digital healthcare designed for you at an affordable and transparent price. With over 30 at-home lab tests, you'll be able to choose the test that makes the most sense for you and to get the answers that you guys need. So Lindsay and I have both done women's health tests and also food sensitivity tests, and I think both of us have actually done. Lindsay, you've done like 5. I've done like 5.
Yeah, I absolutely love doing these tests, and I don't want to say like I'm addicted to doing them, but I think knowledge is truly power, and to be able to just do this from the comfort of your own home and to be able to send it off and to get all the answers that you need is so great. And like Kale said, I just recently did the women's health test and have also recently redone the food sensitivity test and think that it's so great. For those of you who don't know, Everlywell also has high quality vitamins and supplements to help support your overall health. So you can choose from a variety of different options. I think they have like vitamin D3 and omega-3 fish oil. And I just think this is so great. And it's super easy. You just take the test at home, collect your sample, and then they include a prepaid shipping label, and you just mail the test back to a certified lab. And then your physician reviewed results get sent to your phone or device in just days. And then you're able to share those results with your primary care physician to help guide any next steps. And it's just so simple. Over 1 million people have trusted Everlywell, including us, to support their health and wellness goals. And you guys should too.
So for our listeners of the show, Everlywell is offering a special discount of 20% off an at-home lab test at everlywell.com/combos. That's everlywell.com/combos for 20% off your next at-home lab test, everlywell.com/combos. Okay, Sonia, welcome to Coffee Combos Podcast.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. We were just discussing kind of catching listeners up on the case and where we kind of left off with the Brooke Skylar Richardson case. And yes. I was letting our listeners know that you were the first person to break the case. And this has kind of been your story since day one.
Yes, it has.
So how did you get in touch with Skylar?
I just went to the family home and I talked to them. And at first they wouldn't talk to me. So then I went to the uncle and aunt, and then I went to the grandparents, and I kept coming back, and slowly they started talking to me. But it took 2 months for them to be ready for a story to be, published.
Mm-hmm. And did her story ever change from what she originally told you to eventually what she told in court?
No. Right from the time when she spoke to the police to the time that she spoke to me to court, it was always the same. She never moved from what she had said.
So for our listeners, and honestly for Lindsay and I'm a little unsure of the details. Did she in fact burn her daughter's body? And because I know there was like some conflicting evidence on that or difference of opinions. And then I also wasn't sure, was the baby breathing or was the baby not breathing?
Do you want me to go through the events of the night or just answer the question?
No, definitely walk us through everything.
Okay, so Skylar always had amnesia and insomnia. So she would not be she would be awake till 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. She would stay up the whole night, either on social media or reading. And that night, she did her best to sleep, but she couldn't because her stomach hurt so much. And she finally gets up and says she's going to go get some relief. She walks 7 steps from her room to the stairs, and then she stops and sits down. Her legs, she can't, her legs cannot support her. And she goes to the bathroom thinking that she needs to pee. And when she sits on the toilet, the baby comes out. And she tries to catch the baby, but the baby's head hits the toilet. And when she pulls the baby out and wraps in a towel, the baby's white, not moving. And she tries to press on her heart. She tries to open her eyes, tries to do everything, but the baby never opened her eyes, never took a breath. It's just white. And she just holds the baby and she cries and cries. She says to me that it's all my fault. I should have done something. I should have called somebody. I should have told the doctor, did something. And then she doesn't know what to do. So she wraps the baby up in a towel and walks downstairs. She's still half naked. She's just wearing her pajama top. And she walks downstairs, she walks the backyard. And she goes as far as her property line is next to a dollhouse. And she just gets like her mother's little spade and makes a small hole and puts the baby in. The hole is so tiny and so shallow that when the police came to recover the bones, all they did was use a paintbrush. The bones were there.
Oh, wow. And how long after she had buried the body did the police actually uncover the body?
She buried the baby on May 7th. And then she goes back to the doctor's office for an appointment on July 13th. Her first appointment was April 26th when she had gone for birth control pills with her mother. Her mother had stayed in the waiting room and she had gone to the doctor, and the doctor said, before I can prescribe them, I need to do a pregnancy test. The test was done. It came back positive, and the doctor said that he needs to do an ultrasound. So they did an ultrasound, and the doctor came up with the conclusion that she was 32 weeks pregnant. He was wrong. She was full term. And he told her that she had 10 weeks more to tell her mother. And the way he calculated the advancing pregnancy was doing a fundal height.
Okay, instead of tracking by the last period, the first day of the last period. Okay, right. So typically, I mean, I've been pregnant before several times. Right. And one in high school also was, I vaguely remembered, the first day of my last period. So it was a more accurate estimated due date.
Wait, but I have a question. So did she go to the doctor because she thought something was wrong, or was this just like a routine thing? Like, what was the reasoning why she was at the doctor? That just sounds suspicious to me a little bit.
So she had a 2-week relationship with the baby's father, Trey Johnson, and that was back in August. And in January, she met this a young boy named Brendan Saylor, and she was very happy. And the mother saw them getting very physical, like they were hugging a lot and kissing, and she was getting concerned. So she told Skylar, if you're going to do adult things, then you're going to need adult stuff to go with it. So she made the appointment. Then that was Skylar's first OBGY appointment of her life.
Okay.
And she didn't want to go. She kept telling her mother, I don't want to go. I don't want to be examined by a boy doctor. I think at some level, even though Skylar was in denial, I believe that she had a suspicion that she was pregnant.
Yeah,
she just didn't want to find out.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. So her parents never heard anything during the birth, after the birth. She never went and got her parents. And you said that she was in just her pajama top. I'm not sure if you have kids of your own. I do. And I bled after my children. So was there a trail of blood, as she's walking through the house in just her pajama top?
No, there wasn't. There was a lot of blood in the bathroom. Mm-hmm. At that point, I don't know whether she wrapped a towel around her. She was covered in towels, I think. She put one around her waist, and then she had the baby in a towel. And there was a lot of blood. She went back and cleaned it with bleach. And when
Right.
the police came back, they used luminol, a chemical that detects the presence of blood. And
Mm-hmm.
there was blood all over the place. But just in the bathroom, nowhere else.
I watched interviews of Skylar's parents, and I was telling Lindsay before you came on that to me they did seem very aligned in the story, and they seemed very sincere in their interviews, and that they didn't know, and that they really had no idea. But Lindsay and I were saying, as parents ourselves, I mean, I have 4 children. I can't imagine not knowing. I don't have any daughters. I only have boys. But if I had a daughter, I'm so invested in my kids' lives that I can't imagine not knowing. But to Lindsay's point, what she was saying earlier was, as they get older, when they're in late middle school, high school, they could potentially be more secretive. It's just interesting because I looked at her prom picture, and if you turned her to the side, I think that you could tell that maybe she did have a little bit of a belly.
Yes, she did. And to be fair, her parents noticed. But Skylar had these severe eating disorders, and she would put on weight and lose it. It seemed like in minutes. She fluctuated from 90 pounds to 150 pounds
Oh, wow.
within weeks. And the mother posted a lot of pictures of her prior to her pregnancy in which she was looking beautiful. She was looking slim. I could send some pictures to you if you like right now.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And you will see that you will see them. And the police said that prior to birth, she had a lot of pictures, but during the time she was pregnant, the mother didn't post any pictures on her social media. And that is true. Her mother was pretty disgusted by the way she looked. She said that in a text to her mother, she said, Skylar has let herself go to pot. I cannot motivate her anymore. And the father asked the mother, like, what's with the tummy? Like, she's
Right.
getting fat. But they thought if they'd say anything to her, and which is true, she'd stop eating. Because usually people said, Skylar, is this dress too tight? She would stop eating. She wouldn't eat for 3 or 4 days.
Okay.
So they
So
were
very,
afraid.
very sensitive, to,
Yes.
okay. I do remember that from the
Yeah,
interviews.
also because Skylar had these eating disorders, her body is very small, and she couldn't have periods. She had periods in high school, and she could go a year without having periods.
Okay.
And when she, I think she had this relationship with Trey in August, she missed a September period, and then she had that freak out feeling that we're all familiar with. Oh my God, my period hasn't come. But then she got this brown discharge, and that happened every month.
Which is old blood. Brown is old blood.
Yeah, but she didn't know the difference at that time.
Right.
I want to say two things.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
One, I think that there's a huge difference between a girl, and I think it would even be more noticeable, a girl that had previously struggled with eating disorders or whatever. I think it would be very noticeable, a pregnant belly over letting herself go, according to her mother. So I think that that's one thing. And then the other thing is that if she was full term when she delivered the baby, I also find it hard to believe that she was sitting on the toilet and a baby just fell out. Like, I've given birth before and my baby didn't just fall out. It took 45 minutes of intense pushing for him to get out. So that's strange to me as well.
Right. It was strange to everybody, and I think everybody believed that she was guilty, but they had an expert, Dr. John White, who is an OBGYN who specialized in stillbirths, and he explained to the jury what happened. What happens in these situations is the umbilical cord of a normal baby is rich and thick. The umbilical cord of a baby that is growth restricted, because Skylar's baby was probably growth restricted because the doctor put her at 32 weeks instead of 40 weeks. That means the baby was small. And they checked with her school physicals and her weight at the doctor's appointments. She had only gained 15 pounds for a pregnancy. And what happens is when I believe she was in labor for 2 days, but nobody knew that she was in labor. The umbilical cord snapped because it's thin and weak. And once the umbilical cord detaches, the baby's skull collapses it kind of goes in, and then it just plunks out of you. And I think that was Dr. White's first indication that she's telling the truth, because he says he has women patients who say they want to go to the bathroom. They go to the bathroom and they deliver the baby on the toilet. And when you have dead babies, they do plunk out of you. When he was first given this assessment, he didn't know what to make of it. He didn't want the case because there was so much of notoriety attached to it.
Right.
But when he read all the notes and he read everything, he believed her. He said, he called the attorney and said, I think she's telling the truth.
It is hard to believe, when we've had kids, ourselves. And there has to be some degree of mental illness here, right? Because
yes, absolutely.
After you give birth, whether you're pregnant or not, I don't think that most people, their first thought is to bury a baby. Was it ever determined, definitely that the baby was burned or not burned?
Yes, it was definite. So what happened was, after she goes to the first police interview on July 14th, she tells the police what happens, and then they come to take the bones. She shows them where she had buried the baby, and they take the bones back to this state anthropologist, who takes one look at the bones because they are blackened. She buried the baby without any clothes. Just put the baby in the soil, and the soil in the village that she lives, Carlisle, is black. And the sun was shining down on those bones, so that the combination of the soil and the heat kind of made the bones look very dark, very black. So the state forensic anthropologist took one look at them and said, this is burned. And then she just eyeballed it. She didn't do any tests. And she said she has to leave for Europe. She'll come back in 2 weeks, and then she'll do more testing. So now the prosecutor tells the detectives on the case, this baby's bones were burned. Go get Skylar and go get her to admit that she did that. And under that 4-hour examination, when they did their best to break her and they told her she'll be in no trouble at all, they did this technique, which is called the Reed technique, which was used at trial. And she tells them, yes, I killed the baby. Yes, I burnt the baby. Yes, I did everything, whatever she wanted them. I mean, at one point she says, I want my mommy. I want to go home. And they tell her that, they just want to finish the interview so that they can give her daughter the burial she deserves. And she, they play on her guilt, and she tells them everything. Then the anthropologist comes back 2 weeks later, and she examines the bones and says she was wrong. The bones are not burned. And the state prosecutor's office is really, really upset. And they hide that from the defense till November. And then the defense subpoenas all the emails, and they showed them in court. She tells the other anthropologist that, I think the prosecutor's office is very upset with me. I've seemed to have upended the apple cart because I said the baby's bones were burnt, and they are not, but it is what it is. I'm not going to lie to them. I ain't going to lie for them. So she made a mistake.
But Skylar acknowledged the fact that she burned the body.
Yes, she said she took a lighter and the flames went up to the chest.
Yeah, so
which is probably not realistic. You can't just light somebody on fire without an accelerant.
Yeah, and she said whatever they wanted her to say. I'm from India, and my mother's Hindu, and they bury their dead. And I can tell you that stench of that burning body, it doesn't leave your clothes or the surrounding area, which is why they do cremations at the away from the city near the ocean, because the stench is so bad. If she had burnt the baby, those early morning joggers who were out there at 4 a.m, 5 a.m, they would have smelled it. Her parents would have woken up.
Okay.
Burning a body is really hard.
How do you remain unbiased? Do you feel like she was guilty? Do you feel like how do you keep your personal feelings out of this case?
I went in believing she was a monster. I went in believing that she disgusted me. Mm-hmm. The idea of somebody burning her baby really made me throw up. It sickened me. I did not believe she was not guilty going in. And I fully went into her house, fully went into the aunt and uncle's house, believing that, okay, let me see what they're going to say. But when they talked about her and when they showed me all the pictures and they showed me her eating disorder, I started to believe it. And then I talked about I think I've spoken to 300 people in her village before I wrote the book, before the research, and they all said it is impossible that she would do that. And what came out of it was that she loved and feared her mother equally. She was terrified of her mother, and she could not tell her at all. She didn't want to disappoint her. And it makes sense when I go back to the rest of her life. She was raped on her 14th birthday. It took her 2 years to tell her mother. And that's only because she had to, because the person began stalking her. He came with his motorcycle and knocked off their mailbox, and she didn't have a choice. But it took her 9 months to come to terms with the fact that she was assaulted. It took her 6 months to tell her friends, and almost another year to tell her mother. She would not tell her mother anything.
What was the fear? What was the reason for the fear of her mom? Do you know?
She could be very mean, she could be very sharp, and she could be very cruel. And that's what her mother said to me, that I wasn't a good mother before.
Oh, she admitted that to you.
Yeah, she said she was very sharp, very rude, very mean. She could almost be cruel sometimes.
That's so
because
interesting.
Skylar's eating disorders just drove her insane. They had screaming fights and banging doors every single evening in the house. While outside, they looked like the perfect family, well-dressed, sweet girls, sweet
Put together.
son. Yeah. Inside the house, it was just a different story. It was just horrible.
So you feel like it's true to say that parents who are strict create sneaky children, because that is exactly what this sounds like to me, that she feared her mother so much, and that anything that she did that her mother might shame her for, she was going to hide it from her for as long as she possibly could.
Yes, because her friends told me that after she told her mother she was sexually assaulted, when she wanted to go to parties, her mother would throw that in her face and said, "You think you can judge what it's like to go to a party? You think you're going to know who you're going to mix with? You're the girl who got sexually assaulted." And that hurt a lot. So Skylar felt that if she did tell her mother the truth, it would later be used against her. And
Sure.
she could not get past the fact that, at that moment when she gave birth and she was holding the dead baby, she knew that her mother will never get past this, and the angst would follow her for the rest of her life. And she really didn't know what to do with it. At that time, she thought this is the best she can do. Of course, looking back now, there are 100 different ways
to handle the
that you could
situation. Right. But what about the text messages about her body after the fact? She didn't really seem to be remorseful, when she's talking, in terms of her body and how happy she is that she got her body back. She doesn't mention, a baby. I feel like she says something along the lines of, "I had the worst night ever,
Yes.
but I'm better now." How do we make
Right.
sense of those text messages? Because I feel like it almost made it feel premeditated. Like, I'm not going to have this baby. This baby will never exist, kind of thing.
Right. And the prosecution opened with that text message. They said, "OMG, my belly is back, and I'm never, ever going to let it look like this again. You're going to see me looking freaking better than I've ever looked before."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you, as a reporter, cover crime and you see charges against a young person, it is almost always some kind of dysfunctionality in the home and some kind of mental illness. In Skylar's case, there were both those factors. And the dysfunctionality that she had with her mother was her mother wanted her to be absolutely perfect. And she would sign her up for exercise classes and try to do a diet for her. She wanted her to look good. She wanted her to be the center of attention. And people have explained it to me by saying that when Kim was in high school, she wasn't pretty or popular and she needed braces. I think at that time, friends now looking back say that maybe at that time she decided her daughter was going to be completely different. And when you have a final or something, girls typically turn up in sweats with their hair done up in a bun. Skylar was never like that. Skylar's makeup was on point, her lipstick matched. She looked perfect because that's how her mother wanted her to look. And her mother had made so many comments about her, looking not good, letting herself go to pot and stuff like that. So when she did that in an attempt to please her mother, she said, "Look, I'm all good now. Look how great I look." hoping that now she's got her mother's approval. It's a very odd dynamic, which even in 5 years, I have not been able to completely understand it. And I spoke to a psychologist who told me, you're not going to understand because you're not in that situation. And when they had a psychologist who she had seen, who tested her, and he found her to be, anxious and having a lot of issues, he said that she was in denial and shock at that time. She pretended nothing happened. This was just a normal day. And her job, she felt at any cost, was to please her mother and say that, yes, my body's back. I look great. And she got a text message back from mother saying, that's fantastic.
Can you tell us, did they release any information about her mental health through the trial?
They said she has a personality disorder and she is unable to stand up for herself. She gives in to authority figures. She cannot handle confrontation. And they got her teacher, some teachers and her friends in school who told the court how she would run away from bullies, how she did anything to avoid confrontation. In the final year of high school, she ate lunch in a teacher's room where she was a student aide because she could not stand up to the bullies anymore. And so she was a people pleaser. She would say anything.
Friends? Did she have like a group of friends?
Here's another part of it. She had friends, but her mother monitored her friends. And if somebody had a tattoo or was from like what they call a broken family, like a single parent, or they weren't like wealthy enough, Skylar wasn't allowed to go out with them. Skylar couldn't hear certain music at home. She would hear it in her car. And so she would want to be friends with everybody, but her circle was very controlled. She basically had one best friend, but she was, in a sense, friends with everybody because she was very well-liked and popular, but extremely lonely at times. Okay. So she's created these layers and shells to hide from people, and she always has this perfect smile no matter how she's feeling.
I want to talk about the base bag real quick because we are on vacation and I have my weekender bag with me. I absolutely love it. People always say it's about the journey, not the destination. And they're right. Getting there effortlessly is what base luggage and bags were made for. I love my weekender bag. I have it in like the beige color and I have my Crocs on the bottom so they're not touching anything else in my stuff. I absolutely love it. And I bet you would just wish that your luggage did not scream, I'm on a business trip, I
saw your video on Instagram about this bag, and this bag actually arrived at my house when my grandmother was here, and she was raving about how pretty she thought the bag was. I got the neutral one, so I don't know if we have the same one, but y'all know about how I am about shoes and them touching things like my floor or just like my clothes, anything. And so I love that I'm able to put my shoes on the bottom of that bag.
Also, same. I love it. And it's cool because base was created by actress Shay Mitchell, which I'm a huge fan of her. So I love that. And she has designed sleek, affordable bags, luggage, and accessories. If you guys want to try this, right now Base is offering our listeners 15% off your first purchase by visiting basetravel.com/coffee. Go to basetravel.com/coffee for 15% off your first purchase. That's BEIS travel.com/coffee. What is your relationship with Skylar and her family now? Because I know that you released the book. This has been your case since day one. So have they had any feelings on it? Are they upset with you? Are you guys okay? Like, what does that look like for you guys now?
They're fine, but Skylar feels a little bit like an object in a circus. Mm-hmm. She felt that everybody had forgotten her. Now everybody's looking at her again. Mm-hmm. And on September 27th, she has this hearing in court to seal her records.
Right. I did read that. So what is her reasoning to seal the records? I mean, at this point, everyone already knows them. Everyone is.
I know.
Like, what is her end goal? What is her end game? And is she still talking to you? Like, are you still covering all of it?
Yes. She's not talking that much to me. I'm trying to give her a lot of space because it's too overwhelming for her right now. Mm-hmm. But the sealing got very little press. Her reasoning is that she would be able to get financial aid to go to grad school, law school, and it would be easier in terms of housing. And employment has been a huge issue. They hire her, and then everybody, the co-workers find out, and they pull up all the court documents, and then they're really nasty to her. She's had to leave a lot of jobs. And now she only works in an attorney's office because that's a safe environment for her. They love her. They care for her. And it's easy.
She got
But it's
hired
not
at an attorney's office?
her own attorney's
Her
office.
own attorney. Okay. I mean, that
She's
makes
been
sense.
working there since before trial.
Okay. So she's still in Carlisle.
Yes.
Okay.
That's so interesting. I mean, I say all the time, the internet never sleeps and
Right.
it's permanent, right? So
Right.
to seal records that are already out there, you know, if someone wants to find them,
They're going
to get them, whether they're sealed or whether they're not. It's just going to prevent future people from being able to get in and pull the documents themselves. But if people want to search the internet hard enough, they can probably find them.
Oh, she's very unlucky in that sense, especially choosing to live locally. There's no place that she can go to where she's not recognized.
Mm-hmm.
People don't usually give away the fact that they recognize her. So she has some sense of peace with people who are like, grown-ups and don't want to upset her. But other people are not like that. They stare at her. They still point. And when people who do have their record sealed do have a degree of peace and anonymity, and they can go on. But in her case, that's not going to happen. But what is going to change, I think, in terms of financial aid, because she can tell, financial aid advisor that I don't have that felony conviction anymore. It's removed from my record. And in terms of getting housing, so far, Charlie, her attorney had to write letters for her to get housing.
Like for rentals?
Rentals, yeah. That's a problem if you have a felony conviction. So once all that is removed, she'll be able to get student loans and employment. And housing, employment is still a huge challenge, I think, in many ways.
Yeah.
If she moved somewhere else, it'd be much easier.
Are her plans to go to law school?
Yes, I don't know. She's very fragile, though, very fragile and not doing well. Anything triggers off all the memories, all the, all the nightmares of being in the police interrogation room, being held in jail while she was awaiting bond, being shackled in the courtroom, and they paraded her all over the courtroom with all the media of the world staring. I mean, during trial, she had, everybody looking at her. It is so hard, those memories. It's such a dark time that anything triggers off the memory. I mean, she tries to keep buried.
It's hard as a mom to have empathy, even though I do understand the trauma that she probably had at home and the eating disorder, the mental illness. I understand all of that, but it is very difficult to not be angry. And I don't have, sometimes I believe in second
chances.
Second chances. Thank you, Lindsay. And sometimes I don't. And I'm having a hard time with this one. I would be lying if I sat here and said, I don't think that people should talk about her or whisper about it. I mean, these are real decisions that she made. And, I don't know because in interrogation videos that I watched in the interviews, and this could have been, the police just trying to get her to admit to things. She, like you said, she would say whatever she wanted, what they wanted. They said, did the baby make any noise? And at first it was no, but then it changed to, well, she might have whimpered. She might have made some noises.
Yeah, they fed her that word. And I've noticed that with Skylar. When I talk to her and I say something like, so you're upbeat, you're going to get through this, you're resilient. A few sentences later, she'd spit that back at me. Yes, I'm resilient. I can get over it. And she repeats things that you tell her. Okay. Skylar's mental capacity, she may be 23 now, but she is still at that 17, 18 level. She's grown up a lot since then, but she was so controlled and so sheltered. She was only able to go to school and come back from school. That's it. And she stayed home. She had very little contact with anybody.
Would that be considered like an adverse childhood experience that she had that,
also shaped her into who she is? Yes.
Yeah. Stunted her mentally.
Growth,
yeah.
Skylar had a lot of issues, and what she did was kind of, not expected. But if you have so much of anxiety, these eating disorders, and then you have this problem with your mother, this dysfunctionality, it was bound to explode sooner or later, but not like this. Nobody expected this, but everybody expected that one day she'll storm out of the house or something would happen.
I'm with Kale. I think it's really hard to have empathy for someone just coming from a place of being a mother and knowing what that is like, it's hard for me to be empathetic in this situation.
Yes, I get it.
I think that she chose to fight violence with violence when she chose what she did. Like, her mom was, whether you want to deem it violent, in my opinion, abusing someone mentally and emotionally in the way that she probably was is a violent act. But then choosing to do what Skylar did, that's not an excuse to make those decisions. I think that there is definitely some major mental things that are going on that would be involved with someone birthing a baby in a bathroom, wrapping it in a towel, taking it outside, attempting to bury it, whether it be a shallow grave or not. The attempt was to bury the baby, for it to be hidden, and then to go and use a chemical to clean up the mess.
Bleach, yeah, she used bleach.
Yeah,
yes, I totally agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. But what I do want to say in Skylar's defense is that she was 12 years old when she started exhibiting this. I don't know how to describe it. When it was obvious that she was suffering from depression, she had anxiety, she had OCD, she had these eating disorders, she started to cut herself, started to starve herself. And at that point, they took her to the doctor, and the doctor said that she needs therapy. She needs to go to a psychologist. And they didn't want to take her because parents, for better or worse, have the child's best interest at heart. And they just thought that if they take her to a professional, she'll get much worse.
Right. Like the stigma with going to therapy and mental health and all of that.
Had she gotten that help, I don't know whether we would be here today. And you're absolutely right about everything you're saying about the birth, I know it looks callous. I know how indifferent it looks and how it sickens people that the baby never had a chance at all. I mean, if she had called 911, if the ambulance had come, I mean, maybe if the baby was put into an incubator, maybe there was a chance. And I understand everybody's haunted by that. But I want you to know the person who beats herself up every day and is most haunted by that is Skylar. She doesn't sleep well. She cries every night. She wakes up with a pillow wet. She goes and she lays her head down on the toilet and apologizes to her daughter. And she says, I'm so sorry. I would give anything for you to be here. And she's getting worse and worse and worse. I mean, she makes 2 steps forward, 1 step back, then 2 steps forward. I mean, it is difficult to deal with the death of a baby. But, I mean, the feeling that she had holding that dead baby, that shock, that hasn't left her either.
2 points that I would like to make here is I think that when you make big life decisions like she did, there's big life consequences for the things that you do. And so that's one. So, you know, I feel like because of what she did, she should have to suffer the consequences for those things, because these are the consequences for what she did. Outside of that, I think that her parents, you know, it opens up the whole argument of negligence. And if she was experiencing mental illness and, you know, these eating disorders and whatever as early as 12 years old, and her parents didn't get the help that she needed at that point, then you look back on the parenting and say, okay, the parents have a part to play in this as well.
Right.
Absolutely. I agree with that. They definitely need to look in the mirror hard. And I don't know, maybe they have, because like I said, when I saw the interviews, you know, they seemed very sincere.
Yes, they are. Mm-hmm. The father especially is sad and struggling. He struggles every day. And to his horror, he took his daughter. When he took his daughter to the door of the police station, he was opening the door for her to possibly be going to prison for the rest of his life. And that has created so much trauma for him that it's almost unbearable to live with.
Right.
I mean, I can't imagine being a parent, especially like the dad, and if he wasn't as much on board with the abuse that Skylar was experiencing from the mother, that would be hard, because he has to live with the mother every day, right? And then also knowing what his daughter's done, and then also living with the regret of not getting her help when they probably should have gotten her help. And then knowing that she deals with this every single day of her life, that would be very hard as a parent.
Right. Uh, he wasn't aware of what was going on with Kim and Skylar. He thought this was just girl stuff, so he didn't interfere. But Kim was buying her laxatives and water pills, and she would saran wrap her waist and then put this Spanx cincher and then make her wear. And Scott wasn't aware of any of it. He didn't know what was going on. And he didn't talk to Skylar so much. He basically talked to Skylar through her mother. Her mother would text her father and say, Skylar wants to do this, can she? And he would text back. At that point, he didn't have much of a relationship with Skylar. He does now. Now he talks to her a lot. And
see, I do believe his whole side, and I could see where all of the disconnect could come
right
on his part. You know, if the mom was doing all of this stuff and it was behind his back and he had no idea and Skylar wasn't sharing those things because of the lack of the relationship, that to me is a very believable aspect of this story.
Right. But Skylar is aware of the consequences. She's aware, and she did tell me that I understand why people hate me. I understand why they judge me. I deserve it because I've lost my daughter. I've lost a child I could have had. And she's so sorry. She says, I'm forever sorry. I'm really sorry. But I mean, I know it's done now. She has to live. She lives the rest of her life with it. Every day she lives with it.
Right. Where can people find your book? And is there anything else that you want to share with us before we go?
It's on Amazon. And I know when I talk to you guys are very worldly, very smart mothers. And I know it's hard, but I would just like to ask for compassion for Skylar. I mean, I understand she made really bad choices, but I just hope that people will move on and say, okay, you know, it was a bad thing to do, but maybe she deserves a second chance.
I'm definitely going to think about it. I'm going to read the book. I'll definitely give it some thought.
I'm not going to promise you anything because I do not have any empathy for her. But what I will say is that I will be committed to diving into your book, reading more about it, and holding further judgment until we do so. Right. We will make sure that we link your book on our Instagram account. And for everyone who has not followed us on @CoffeeCombos Podcast on Instagram, please make sure you follow us over there. And if you have not subscribed to our show, you can find us on any podcast app. And as always, Podcast One will be releasing the episode first. And I hope that you guys all have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.